Hey, all you cool cats and kittens, it's your favorite history teacher back at you again with another historical video. Today, we are talking about the war in Vietnam. The war in Vietnam. All right, let's not waste any more time. Let's just get into it and get busy. All right, so war in Southeast Asia, chapter 15, section 4. Yep. Almost at the end, people. Almost at the end. War in Southeast Asia. That was your warm up. Liberation. So, just to bring in context of why Vietnam came up, and mainland Southeast Asia after World War II was an agonizing liberation struggle tore apart the region, the formerly known French Indochina. So if you've ever heard of Indochina referenced earlier in the year, we're talking about Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand. So yeah, there are two major phases of liberation: the war against the French, which lasted 1946 and 1954, and then the Cold War conflict that lasted about 20 years, from 55 to 75. So again, Indochina. This is Indochina. I mistakenly said Thailand, but Thailand's part of Southeast Asia. But Indochina right here. Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam. All right, some background. The eastern part of Southeast Asia was conquered by the French in the early 1800s. The Japanese overran Indochina, but during World War II, they faced fierce resistance, especially in Vietnam, from local guerrillas. These were small groups of loosely organized soldiers making surprise raids. Again, guerrilla warfare, hit and run, hide and seek, run and hide, shoot, then run, anything and everything, hide in the bushes or the jungle. Guerrillas were determined to be free of all foreign rules, so they turned their guns on the European colonists that threatened to return after the war. So, the Vietnamese, I'm not going to say predominantly with French help, but the Vietnamese are going to resist the Japanese. And then when the French fled, and they were planning on returning because it's their colony, the Vietnamese had it. So guerrillas were strongly influenced by communist opposition to European colonial powers. So again, where opposition towards, oh, the French, look what the French did to us. They're horrible. Look at what communism is doing in China. And it wasn't in Korea just yet. But look at what communism did in Russia. So yeah, they were strongly influenced by China. Hello, China borders them to the north. All right, so here's some French liberation pictures during World War II. I think I searched up Vietnamese guerrillas, and this might just be, I don't know. All right, so the first Indochina War. After the Japanese were out of the nation following World War II, the French set out in 1946 to reestablish their authority in Indochina. In Vietnam, a man named Ho Chi Minh led guerrilla forces. He was a nationalist and communist who fought against the Japanese, and he fought the French in the First Indochina War. There would be an unexpected Vietnamese victory at the bloody Battle of Dien Bien Phu, or sorry, I'm butchering accents, but Dien Bien Phu in 1954, and that convinced the French to finally get out of Dodge, finally leave Vietnam. Cambodia and Laos separately will get their independence on their own in their own time shortly after. That's Ho Chi Minh. There you go. This is a pixelated photo of the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. All right, so now you have two Vietnams. And after 1954, the struggle for Vietnam became part of the Cold War. Why? Why would it become? Well, Ho Chi Minh is communist. And the French are kind of our allies, and they lost a valuable resource in Southeast Asia. And there's no like democracy there and only communism. Well, that's bad business for the United States. This is where like the United States shift to a global power. The global police is like, we need to take care of business. We don't need communism in Southeast Asia. Because what else is in Southeast Asia? The Philippines, U.S. owned. Can't have the Philippines getting communist. So after 1954, it became about Cold War. I already said that. At an international conference in the West, a communist nation decided to temporarily divide Vietnam together in agreement. Ho Chi Minh would control North Vietnam, and a non-communist government led by Ngo Dinh Diem would rule South Vietnam. And obviously, his support came from the United States. The agreement called for elections to reunite the two Vietnams. However, they would never be held because Ngo Dinh Diem and the U.S. thought the communists would win. So some South Vietnamese preferred Ho Chi Minh, who was a national hero because, again, he fought against the French. And they did not like Ngo Dinh Diem because of a foreign power supporting him, mainly the United States. Ho Chi Minh's government in the north alienated some Vietnamese, the many Catholic and pro-French that still stuck around, that, didn't think that the French were bad people to them, and, their religion being, the French were heavily Catholic, and yeah, not the type of religion they want. So the U.S. supported Ngo Dinh Diem because of the communist threat from the north. And Ngo Dinh Diem was dictatorial and alienated many with his corruption and brutal tactics against political opponents. Like any good dictator, corruption is there. Ooh. I think I just made some merch. I should make that. That should be a t-shirt for Mr. Ovalle, since everyone else is making their own stores nowadays. Anyways, I'm going to shut up. They were divided at the 17th parallel line, flatitude, North Vietnam, South Vietnam. That's Ngo Dinh Diem. All right, America gets involved. So the American foreign policy leaders saw the situation in Vietnam as part of the Cold War, and this is where the idea of domino theory comes into existence. And it was a belief that a communist victory in South Vietnam would cause non-communist governments across Southeast Asia to fall to communism, like a row of dominoes. So think of the top of the Asian continent: Soviet Union, China, North Korea, and now North Vietnam, Cambodia, you guys know how a domino falls. And again, can't have that. The U.S. can't have that. So Ho Chi Minh remained determined to unite Vietnam under communism. He continued to aid the National Liberation Front, aka the Viet Cong, who were the communist rebels trying to overthrow the South Vietnamese government. At first, the U.S. only sent supplies and military advisors to South Vietnam. Later, they will commit and send thousands of troops and it'll turn a local struggle into a major military Cold War conflict. So you have the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. August 1st, 1964, South Vietnamese commandos conducted raids on North Vietnamese islands in the Gulf of Tonkin. The next day, the North Vietnamese attacked a nearby U.S. destroyer, the USS Maddox, which they mistakenly believed to have assisted in the South Vietnamese raids. 3 days later, sailors on the Maddox thought they had been attacked a second time, although it looks like afterwards that their sonar and radar were malfunctioning. But current president at the time, U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson, he takes over after JFK got assassinated, right? LBJ reported the attacks to Congress without mentioning the South Vietnamese raids or a second attack. So believing that these attacks had been, quote, unprovoked, Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution 6 days later, 1964. The resolution authorized the president to take all necessary measures to prevent further aggression in Southeast Asia. Notice, we did not declare war. We haven't declared war against the country since World War II. And here you have the Gulf of Tonkin. Here's a map when the Maddox would be attacked. War is on. After the resolution passed, the U.S. began bombing targets in North Vietnam. Eventually, more than 500,000 U.S. troops will be committed to the war. At the same time, the U.S. and China sent aid, not troops, sent aid to help North Vietnam. During the Vietnam era, young American men were required to register for the military draft. Men were then selected in the draft in a random lottery. Many saw the fighting for their country as their patriotic duty. However, to avoid being drafted, some military-age American men left the country to seek refuge in other nations not involved in the war, called draft dodgers. This is where, like, oh, if Donald Trump gets elected, I'm going to Canada. Well, I ain't getting registered to vote. I ain't getting registered for the war because I oppose it, and I'm not going to go. I'm going to go to Canada. I do believe that this is where, like, if you were in college, you did not have to sign up. It's all the people. I think it's all the people who didn't. Extra credit question. There we go. Yeah. In regards to being drafted for the war in the United States, were college students exempt? Find it out for me. Like the French, America faced another guerrilla war. Rebels in South Vietnam were mainly peasants and knew much of the countryside more than the Americans. Kind of sounds like the American Revolutionary War, right? They knew local people who offered safe haven against foreign troops. These close connections between guerrillas and villagers turned villages into like military bases. Supplies came along the north along the jungles, came from the north along trails in the jungles of Cambodia and Laos. And in response, American aircraft and troops crossed borders, which drew Laos and Cambodia into the war as well. So here you got, soldiers ready to shoot. You got them crossing rice fields, rice paddies. And the helicopters were dramatically used all across Vietnam. A lot of helicopters. Here you have a raid going on. Here you got pictures. All right, so the Tet Offensive. Despite massive American aid, South Vietnam failed to defeat the communist guerrillas and their North Vietnamese allies. It's like they're kind of fighting two different groups. In 1968, guerrilla forces came out of the jungles and attacked Americans in South Vietnamese cities all across the South. This assault was unexpected because it took place during Tet, the Vietnamese New Year. The communists lost many of their best troops and did not hold any cities against the American counterattacks. But the Tet Offensive marked a turning point of public opinion in the United States. Now, 1968, we have been involved in their struggle for 13 years. And no significant victory has come from it. Here's the map of the Tet Offensive. Like, they attacked all these places in the South all at once. Or not all at once. For about a month, they attacked all these cities. So, U.S. civilian opposition. As fighting continued, civilian deaths were caused by the bombing by North Vietnamese, and a growing American casualties inflamed anti-war opinion in the United States. There were increasing numbers of troops were POWs or MIAs, prisoners of war, missing in action. Some believe that the Vietnam War was a quagmire, a swamp, where the U.S. became more bogged down in it. More and more young people turned out for massive street demonstrations, all a part of a growing anti-war movement. Americans didn't want more body bags coming back or TV footage of Vietnamese villages being blown up. I want to get out, but I don't want to give up. That was like the American mentality. We don't want to say we lost, but we want to get the hell out of Dodge. Make love, not war. Here's some street protests by young people, students. My son was killed in Vietnam. What for? America. Not our sons, not your sons, not their sons. All right, so you have the Paris Peace Accords. So in the end, American leaders decided they had to get out of Vietnam. Faced with the conflict at home and abroad, LBJ did not run for a second term. So what happened is when, JFK was assassinated, Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson takes over, and then Lyndon B. Johnson he gets reelected, but he does not seek reelection following for his second concurrent term. All right. Although American troops seldom lost a battle, they had not destroyed the Vietnamese communist determination to keep fighting. Kind of like in World War II, the closer and closer America got to Japan, the harder and harder it was to win a victory. However, this is more so, we're in a land where we don't know where the bullets are coming from. We don't know where they're hiding from. And you can use almost all the Agent Orange, all the napalm to burn the jungles down. You still won't find them. So LBJ's successor, Richard Nixon, came under heavy fire to end the U.S. involvement in Vietnam. Nixon finally negotiated the Paris Peace Accords in January 1973 and established a ceasefire. The U.S. agreed to withdraw troops from North Vietnam agreed to not send any more troops south. The accord, however, will leave South Vietnam to determine their own future to set up a peaceful reunification with North Vietnam. So there you go. Paris Peace Accords. All right, so communism is victorious. 2 years after the U.S. troops withdrew from the country, the North Vietnamese conquered South Vietnam. The South Vietnam capital of Saigon was renamed Ho Chi Minh City in 1976 to honor their late leader. The North Vietnam capital of Hanoi became the capital of the reunited nation. This is the U.S. holding a communist flag. Here are more pictures. All right, Dominos Fall. After the withdrawal from Vietnam, some dominoes fell. Both Cambodia and Laos ended up with governments dominated by communist Vietnam. However, the following dominoes stopped at the former borders of French Indochina. Other parts of Southeast Asia remained thoroughly capitalist, some less than democratic, but still capitalist and not communist. So now we're going to Cambodia. And while fighting erupted in South Vietnam, some spilled over in neighboring Cambodia. In 1970, U.S. bombed the North Vietnamese supply routes in Cambodia and briefly invaded the country. The Khmer Rouge, I believe that's how you say it, Khmer Rouge, I may be butchering it, sorry, which were the Cambodian communist guerrillas, gained ground in Cambodia. In 1975, the Khmer Rouge overthrew the Cambodian government, led by the brutal dictator Pol Pot. The Khmer Rouge, KM, unleashed a reign of terror. To eliminate Western influences, they drove people from the cities and forced them to work in the fields. I believe a representation of this is in one of the Rambo movies in Cambodia. So if you're a fan of Rambo and Sylvester Stallone, there you go. Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge slaughtered, starved, or worked to death more than 1 million Cambodians, a third of their population. It took a Vietnamese invasion to drive out Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge back to the jungles to impose their own authoritarian government. However, at least they stopped the genocide. And a genocide was happening. All right. This is Pol Pot. This is an angry man. And these are graves of the dead bodies that the Cambodian government did. And we're done. All right, so that concludes this lecture. We have one more left to do. And yeah, hopefully you guys did like that, learning a little bit more about the Vietnam War, the war in Vietnam. Forrest Gump is represented. If we had time, I would have shown you Good Morning Vietnam, which by Robin Williams, which is a good movie, a good representation of it too. So yeah, hopefully you did like that. If you did, make sure you smash that like button. Help your teacher out, right? Anyways, your homework, I forgot, your homework is page 533, 3 through 6. Not 3 through 5, 3 through 6. 533, 3 through 6. Okay? As always, stay safe, wash your hands. Peace.